Hello,
Hello.
So,
Ripsul. Okay. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's an honor to be able to have you as a guest here. We all been very excited to, be able to kind of learn a little bit more about, your background, all the things that you've been doing for the community, especially for the Cambodian community here in Lowell. So we're very excited, and we obviously have some questions written down for you, which we'll be going over shortly. But first of all, I just wanted to have you maybe introduce yourself a little bit so everyone knows who you are.
okay. My name is Chan Tuch. I'm a family nurse practitioner, and currently I'm practicing a private practice in Lowell, Massachusetts. I was a Cambodian refugee. I came to the United States on September 1st, 1988 from the refugee camp. Right after I came to this country, I went to school at night where I got my GED. And then I went to community college, and then I went to University of Connecticut, Stores. And later on, I transferred to a private school in Massachusetts where I get my associate in 94. Remember, I came here 88. I got my associate degree in 92 from liberal art. In 94, I get my associate in nursing. And 96, I get my bachelor in nursing. We met in psychology. And 97, I got to graduate school, and I completed my master in 2000. In 2004, I went for my PhD in nursing. And then later on, I switched to my DNP doctor nursing practice in 2010 at UMass. Yeah, and anyway, I failed to get my doctor because I ran out of time because of work. I have a dual major for my PhD and DNP. I'm too greedy. I love school. I love school. The only problem with me is that they told me that I ran out of time. That's why I didn't want to have my doctor. And they told me out of time. So I didn't get my doctor. That's like 13 years ago. Yeah, unfortunately. And what happened is that in 2000, I was the first Cambodian American in the state of Massachusetts who got my family nurse practitioner. And as a part of it, I and the global Cambodian with Lucas Saito, who used to be our CEO, we applied for a grant and we received $300,000 in 2000. And we create a center you might hear in the Meta Health Center. Yeah, I was there for 18 years. We grow big from zero until like 10,000 patients. So later on, I left the practice, so I came to a private practice. It's smaller, less messier, and it's not such a headache like it used to be.
So Meta Clinic now is Lowell Community Health Center, correct?
It is a part of it, yes.
It's a part of it. Okay.
Yeah, it is satellite. At that time, Greg Saito used to be the CEO, like the mothership, and Meta is a satellite. We have family, we have Meta, and I was at Meta for a very long time. And it was a really, it was such a challenge, to deal with the Cambodian community when they always believe in when you go to see a doctor, you get antibiotic. Okay, you have a headache, you get Percocet, And here I am, just in there, and I have to tell them, no, you're not going to get Percocet for your migraine headache. You're not going to get antibiotic for your cough. So it was a tough sale, to convince them. But well, the community is growing. Now we have more and more family NP. They have a Cambodian NP, several of them that graduated. And community is getting better, actually. Yes.
Yeah. For those who don't know, I mean, Lowell Community Health Center is definitely one of the bigger clinics here, and we have a lot of our members see doctors and nurse practitioners at the clinic. So it's interesting that you were a part of that, from the get-go. That's really interesting to know that. I had no idea. about it. Okay, so we're gonna jump right into some of the historical background, like like when and where and how did you come to America?
Okay, so as you know that during the war in Cambodia I was born 1967. So by 1970, I was about 4 or 5 years old. At that time, the war started in Cambodia, and I lived during the war. It's a lot of casualties. Yeah. And in 1975, I was about, I should say about like 7 or 8 years old at that time. The Khmer Rouge or the communist Cambodian took over in Cambodia. So I went to the labor camp, along with a lot of Cambodians. So we were in the labor camp 3 years, 8 months, and 20 days. And I survived. I came back, barely survived. I came back, returned back to Phnom Penh City, the capital of Cambodia. And if you have seen the movie The Killing Fields, you will understand the significant problem. But believe me, the reality are much worse. Because like for me, during the killing field, I used to drink water with dead body float in the river. I have seen that one dead person. I saw a pile of dead persons, sometimes 100,000. Okay, as a young child. I managed to survive it, and then I returned to Phnom Penh City, with my family, and we lived a very difficult life. Because after 1975, everything is completely destroyed by the Khmer Rouge. In 1970, and that was a really tough, especially as a Chinese Cambodian, because in Cambodia, most people might not know, but a Chinese Cambodian like me, they have a term they call Circular 351. Circular 351 or Bayroi Hamoi, designated for the Chinese Cambodian. And if you're a Chinese Cambodian, it means that you are the first person to die. What will happen? You're going to be the first one to die. You will be sacrificed for the sake of the revolution. It doesn't matter how smart you are. If you're a Chinese Cambodian, you will not be allowed to pursue or further higher education in Cambodia. It's not like right now, it was a very, very difficult life. So finally, in 1982, they have a program where they send all able-bodied to cut down the trees in Cambodia. And if you go, your chance of surviving that labor force was about 10%. So I said, well, I'm going to die anyway. So I decided to escape to the refugee camp. Just want to let you know that by 1984, I got admitted to medical school in Cambodia. I was a very good student, and I won national competition in physics and chemistry, and they allowed me to take a special test. So I passed it. So I went to medical school when I was about 17. But because being a Chinese Cambodian, when they have that program to cut down the forest, I was the one who was selected, and I knew if I went, I would be there somehow, because how they sent like 2 million people to like a 5 acre of land and cut down the tree, and people got killed. A lot of them, yeah. So I ran to the refugee camp. I went across landmines and all of that, and one of my sisters was shot and killed. I walked across landmines. Some got blown up. I have gun put to my head over here, my forehead, my chest. I saw people got shot in front of me on the way to the refugee camp. And most women never made it. They were gang raped and they were murdered along the ways. It's about from the Cambodian, when I walk across landmine, probably around 20 miles, all landmines. And I went to a refugee camp, and then I got to Thailand. It's very deadly. That is when my sister was shot and killed. I managed to get into the camp, and I was there. Basically, I was in jail. It's like a 2 months camp. You get in, they shoot you. You get out, they shoot you. I was in there for more than 3 years, and later on, I was transferred to another camp for about 5 months. So totally more than 4 years. And life without hope is extremely, extremely, extremely difficult. The only time that I find hope when I got here. there we go.
Yeah, just like a lot of other Cambodian refugees, obviously this is something that I can relate. My parents were, survivors, my aunts and uncles who, essentially escaped the war as well back in the 80s and 90s and came over to the United States as refugees. So I've, heard a lot of stories, seen a lot of movies, read a lot of articles, documentaries, but from your personal experience, nothing is compared to that reality. You can see, you can hear, but you were the first one to actually experience it yourself. So I can only imagine how difficult it was for you, your family, and millions of other, Cambodian population back then as well. So when you came to America, like, can you talk about the journey here? Like, was it through the plane, the ship? Like, how did that come about?
Yeah, my journey from Cambodia to Thailand mostly, like boat, buses, so we bribe people, so mostly by land, when once I got accepted to the United States, we flew all the way, from Thailand to Denmark and then to New York. TWA, I still remember that. One thing I did, and I was told that probably I'm the only Cambodian American that did that. I wrote my diary. When I escaped from Cambodia, I wrote it down on my note until I got to the US. So the day that I left Cambodia, I still remember, was July 21st, 1984. It was Sunday, 5 o'clock in the morning. And when I left Cambodia, I wrote it on all the way until I get to the US. When I flew over here, and one thing that affected me the most is that when I was as a refugee in the camp, I thought that, this is a country paved with gold. We always dream big of America. We completely clueless what it was like. But I prepare myself, I want to study. I want to learn English as best I can. So I went to church, in the refugee camp where they teach English. And then I learned my basic English from the church. When I came to the US, the first thing that I saw, and I was shocked, it's like I saw a person pick up trash, from the bin. And I said to myself, if an American pick up trash from the bin, what's going to happen to me, a refugee who knew nothing, without a single penny in my pocket, without speaking English, anything at all, except set of clothes on my body. That was it. My sister who came earlier can do so much because, 4 of us came, so she could not financially support all of us. That is when the struggle started. One thing though, however, I keep telling myself that I will not use the word poor me. Compared to millions of people around the world, I'm very fortunate to be selected to enter this wonderful country. And if I can survive anywhere in the world, including Cambodia, yes, I will survive in the US. And that is my determination that put me forward. And I was very, 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 very disciplined. Like, I came to this country, whatever happened in the past, I tuck it away. I focus on education. I don't make any excuse, I don't go to use drugs. I don't drink, I still don't drink, I still don't smoke in my whole life, not even beer. Because I feel like that will affect my commitment to rebuild a future for my family. I was a young man on the street, so I determined to make it. And that's how I started. It doesn't matter how difficult it is. I would never give up. Never.
The struggles and the challenges being a refugee in America. So can you just kind of enlighten us on that subject? Growing up in America, like what were some of the challenges that you face?
Yeah. Being a male an Asian, it's tough. It's tough. I have a small stature too, so I'm not a big guy. I'm a small guy. So it's tough, tough. Go to work, always an issue. I want to go to school so bad, okay? And, but going to medical school, is out of my imagination at that time. So I just want to go to nursing. So I started, and believe me, being a male and Asian in a female profession, it was not an easy thing. Really tough. I have a lot of questions. Sometimes in the whole class of 100 people, there's only 2 guys. That's about it. I'm the only Asian, basically. And it was tough because there's a lot of expectation, and discrimination is always one part of it. There's always, people ask me all the time, oh, you're a man, why you come to be a nurse? They see you talk about 1994, 95, and you strain a little bit, but I said that, this is the career that I want to do it. And most people never understand, why? Because as a victim, I found, and as a victim and a survivor, I found out that each time that I reach out my hand to help others, I'm healing myself. It's very, very important. Whenever I help somebody, I feel great. For the first few years when I came to the US, I had nightmare all the time. I had PTSD all the time. I will dream that somebody will come and slit my soul, stab me every night, the same dream again and again and again. But I found out that, when I work in a nursing home, when I help somebody, I sleep better that night. And this is one thing that I focus about. Medical field will be a way that I can heal myself, at the same time earn a living, and at the same time helping others. Okay, and this is what my parents, my father, want me to do. And my father passed away after my mother passed away just before the Khmer Rouge took over in 1975. And my father passed away after I got to the US, and he just passed away in Cambodia. And it was hard. It was not that easy. English is a second language, my accent and all of that. I never forget when I went to get my PhD, when I got accepted to my PhD program at UMass in 2004. I remember Dr. Futrell, May Futrell, who used to be the chair in the nursing department at UMass. She said to me, oh, your English is better. And I laughed. I said, Dr. Futrell, I had my master 4 years ago, so at least I expect my English is better. Okay, and there's a lot of things that they did and make it very difficult for me, especially to achieve my doctoral level. But I expected nothing is perfect. My commitment to myself is that I will do my best. It doesn't matter whether I reach it or not. If I look high, if I don't reach my goal, still go high. If somebody stop me from achieving my dream, that is okay. It's not me. It is them. So my commitment is that as long as I do my best, it doesn't matter. I will do my best, regardless of what is the consequences and what will happen. That's how I do. And discrimination is always an issue, especially among Asian, and also being a male in this nursing profession. And as you know that, UMass just had the first female Asian as a chancellor. 20 years ago, there was no Asians, in that position. The only person that was my advisor at UMass for my PhD was Dr. Lin Zan. She couldn't stand, so she left. And I was the only Cambodian and male PhD student. Very difficult. I found there was no support. There's a lot of negative issue that put upon me, and there was no help. Period. And it was tough. For when I did my DNP, the first time I'm supposed to graduate, just about 4 weeks before my graduation, I believe that was in 2014, something like that. My chair asked to read my dissertation. I complete all my dissertation and everything. And throughout my research, she didn't help me at all. None. She never paid any attention. So I have a doctor who was a psychiatrist in Law. Dr. Hinton, he has MD and PhD from Harvard Medical School. He helped me with my research and I completed all of that. When my chair took the paperwork, she said that she didn't understand it. And she said that, I just copied, I didn't do it. And I told her that, Dr. Hinton can testify, to defend me. She said no, and they wouldn't let me graduate because of that. And what she did to me is that she asked me to submit all my report to her, and I did. And guess what she did to my paperwork? She destroyed all of them. All of them. Later on, they found out there were issues with her, so she was terminated from UMass PhD. But then by then I lost my dissertation and I was delayed. So when I restarted again, by the time I got to the end, I didn't have enough time to complete my study again. So I was not able to graduate. I was disqualified. So yes, that's another issue. Yes.
Right. So do you think there's a difference between like the discrimination back then and now? Do you feel like the type of discrimination is still going on at the same rate as it used to be, or you feel like it's getting better to some extent?
I feel that it's much better even among the hospital. I remember when I got out in '96 as a male nurse, I worked at Law General Hospital. I was the first Cambodian nurse in Law, and I speak English, Cambodian, Thai, and Laos. And all people that got higher was about like 15. Only two male. The two male didn't get full-time job. He and I, one of my friends and I didn't get. He's black. He and I didn't get full-time job, despite I speak 4 languages and have my bachelor. Still, I was not given a full-time job, only part-time job. But they use me all the time for emergency room translate. Now it is different, more Cambodian went to school. There are more Cambodian nurses. There are some Cambodian physicians. The community are more educated. I talk to a lot of people. I feel like the community is getting better. Even at UMass Law is getting better. And I wish, if we have this support 10 or 15 years ago, I would have received my doctoral degree already. Actually, yeah. Better. No question about it. Yes.
Okay. So, why did you want to become an NP? What was there like an inspiration behind it? A role model that you looked up to? Can you just speak on that?
Well, 2 things that affect my decision to go into medical field. First of all, is that since I was young, my father always wants me to be a physician. So I started learning. I didn't learn Cambodian when I was young. I learned French, and my parents expect that when I get older, when I finish high school, I will go to study medicine in France. However, what happened when the Khmer Rouge took over, the dream was lost. When I left Cambodia, my father told me that go to medical field if I want to honor him. And that's what I did. I could make it to medical school, but the closest one that I can get is to be an MP that is close enough. And that's one thing to, as a respect toward my father, as he's asked me to do. Second is that, like I said earlier, when I reach out to touch someone to help them, I'm healing my soul. And that's very important too, for the long-term survival. That's why. And I forgot to mention too, the third thing too that inspired me too is that when I was in the refugee camp, I worked as a physician assistant, with doctors, with all of that. And I met American couple that went to the refugee camp in Thailand, and I got to know them well. When I came to the US, they asked me to come to live with them, and my foster mom was a PhD, nursing PhD. She's the dean at UConn, Dr. Carolyn Davanzo. So she's also inspired me. I live with a nurse in the household, and my first dad was a psychologist. So I was growing up, in that environment, and that foster education and learning.
That's great. So it seems like, you're not just doing it for yourself, but you're doing it for obviously your parents, your foster family, and also for the folks who, had been gone during the war and stuff. That's all kind of part of the inspiration behind you pursuing the higher education and becoming the NP. That itself is very inspirational. I mean, to me, at least personally. I know a lot of the Cambodian population, parents, they always want to have their kids focus on education, right? And I'm sure they would be very proud of you, of what you have become and what you have achieved so far. And so being an important figure in the community, especially here in Lowell, and working in the healthcare right now, do you feel like we have enough resources to kind of make the healthcare better, or is there anything that you think that you would change if you had the power to?
Yeah. Low right now, we have about 50,000 Cambodian residents living in Low right now. And so far, we don't have enough providers. And we don't have enough provider. And for provider who can practice here, mostly as younger generation. So most of the time, they do not speak Cambodian. Some of them, even if they speak Cambodian, still they don't understand the depth of the culture of the practice. Or sometimes they don't understand the term that use all the time. For example, one term that I saw all the time, because one part of my job too, I used to teach a Cambodian English interpretation course. So basically all Cambodian interpreter in Low or in Boston area, I taught them English and Cambodian, and I have to certify them so they can translate properly. For example, if you don't understand Cambodian properly, you don't understand the term. If you use the word like the doctor said that we want to puncture your liver to do liver biopsy, and you're going to say puncture. Puncture in Cambodian word means making a hole. And 90% to 100% of my patients will say, oh, no, I will not do it. But when I explain to them, no, it's not making a hole. You just take a needle, puncture, I mean, inject into it and get a small cell and, to be tested. And they say, oh, had I known that, I would have done it. See, so this is, we lack a provider that really understand in depth all the Cambodian and English medical terminology. Fortunately, for me, because I was growing up, speaking Cambodian, learning French. And also when I was in the refugee camp, I spent for 4 years as a physician assistant working in a hospital. So I understand English, I understand French, and I understand Cambodian. The 3 languages that allow me to help. Even now I have all of those, my friend always call me and say, oh, how you translate this or translate that? You don't find it, in the community right now at Low Community Health Center. They certify people, they train people to speak Cambodian and English, but the trainer speak only English. It's not good enough. The community needs somebody who really understand the concept of medicine,
right?
Terminology, and of course we need more providers because we don't have enough. We still have very few.
Yeah, I totally agree with the communication. That's a vital key to getting the procedures and the medications that you need. I'm actually a medical, interpreter myself. So I've gone through classes where, we talked about how we should always translate or interpret meaning to meaning, not word to word. Because when, like you said, puncture, it can mean very different things, right? And there's a phrase like in Cambodian population, we used to say when you're pregnant, when you deliver, crossing the river, Chlong Delay, right? That whole phrase, when you translate it to English directly, it literally means crossing the river. But in Cambodian, it means like giving birth, essentially. So when you translate or interpret word to word, that's what you get. So people have to understand, the way we interpret in Cambodian, and then the way we translate or interpret into English. So it's a whole other, level in terms of communication. So it's very important to know the differences and understand clearly before you kind of, interpret or determine what is being done to the member and the patients. So I found that very interesting, and a lot of people who don't have the education training on these particular topic tend to have a lot of issue when they're dealing with patients in the community. And this is why, a lot of our folks here in our area, we try to, hire staff that speak different languages to kind of prevent that from happening, because we work with, members in the community. We have hundreds of people, and sometimes they ask us to, translate for them, and interpret for them because they don't understand. And so we're also a key in terms of their healthcare. We play an important role as well. And so so if you were to change anything in terms of like, treating patients right now, because I know Cambodian patients can be difficult to treat because sometimes they believe in, taking herbs or, traditional medications and things like that. When you see that types of patient, what do you usually, recommend or kind of persuade them from not taking it, and then have them take the actual scientific medications instead? Like what are your thoughts on that?
That's a very interesting question, because I have been asked too. Also, just want to let you know, I was in faculty at medical school for about 4 or 5 years, where I taught community medicine to a group of third-year medical students, and they asked me the same question. And I told them that it's very important that we have to respect culture regardless whether it's different from us or not. Okay. For example, if a patient comes to me and say, hey, I take herbal medicine for my diabetes. I guarantee you, if you say, oh, don't take that trash, it's not in the world, that person will not come back to see you. I guarantee it. Okay. My option is to say like this, well, I respect your, I respect your belief. Let's make a deal. Okay. Let's check your blood sugar today, and then check your blood sugar every day while you're on medication, and then see me in a month. And then let's figure it out if the medication is working or not. If your blood sugar has been better without modifying the diet, and then it means that, well, the medication is working. If it's not, well, it's gonna be my way, and make a deal. And most of the time they say yes. So when they came back and I see their blood sugar all higher, see, told you so. Okay. Now, in that way, I showed them respect of their belief, their culture. Okay. Of what they're doing, I believe it. But as a provider, my job is to make sure that they're safe. So by allowing them to do what they do and allow me to monitor them, when I got result, I managed to convince them, yes, herbal medicine doesn't help. I have proof. So I respect them. In return, they respect my decision also. So I have no issue. I encounter this issue all the time in my practice here.
Yeah.
Even and I do the same thing. Show me what you're taking and then make a deal. Yeah, it happened all the time. Yes.
Yeah.
It happened among Cambodian, among Laotian, among Thai, all of that. So I make a deal the same thing, and it worked well. Actually, it worked well.
Yeah, I think that's a solid plan to me. It's all about respect, especially sometimes patients do, they're influenced by others, whether it's their neighbors or family members, friends, and they just kind of go off each other without realizing or thinking, that can affect their health. They just think that, oh, it works for this person, it should work on he or she too, right? But everybody is different. Their health is different, their age, their biological, there's differences in terms of that. So I think your approach is definitely a good one, from because we work with a lot of Cambodian community here, and when I used to be a case manager doing visits, a lot of my patients were taking the herbal medications, and I'm like, does your provider know about this? Sometimes they try to hide it. They don't tell the doctors about the herbal medication that they're taking, and sometimes they take that and not take the prescribed medication from the doctor, and then their health deteriorate over time. That's definitely one of the issues. That's why I wanted to ask about your approach and your thought on that. So that's interesting. In terms of like mental disabilities, like you said, you had a lot of PTSD, right? Do you still have PTSD up until now, or has that gotten better? Or like, and then you can talk a little bit about the patients that you see. Have they complained to you about having PTSD all the time?
Yeah. Well, personally, my condition, I believe it 90% is over now. The only time that always affect me is in April. I always remember when the company took over Cambodia, when they walked in and sent 3 million people out of the city. In 24 hours, I was there. So that's the only time that I seem there's some issue. That is why normally I don't, every new Cambodian New Year, I would not go to the temple. I didn't celebrate Cambodian New Year's, since 1979. Even now, still, because that only time that it will remind me of something very unpleasant, and normally I avoid that. Now, it's tough for my patient, there are a lot of problems that has not been resolved. Some of them, when you're dealing with people with mental health, you have to be extremely careful. You have to be very sensitive. I made a mistake once and I learned my lesson. All I did was I talked to a patient. I said, it's just a normal conversation. And she said, oh, I came to the refugee camp, blah, blah, blah. And then all I did, I said, oh, so you came by boat or you came by land? And that word alone triggered a severe panic attack, because that lady was gang raped by soldiers. And it was a mess after that. So, it is very important when I'm dealing with sick people with mental health issue. One word I always say is, it is okay for me to talk a little bit about the past, what you went through. If you don't feel comfortable, you don't talk, find your specialist. And like I said again, I learned from my mistake. Dealing with people with mental health issue is very difficult. In Cambodian, any Cambodian that is about my age, I'm 56, 57 now. People about my age, older, all of them went through horrific experiences in life. So I caution everybody, to treat very, very carefully when you're talking to them. A casual conversation can lead into something very, very serious. Go that patient who wanted to commit suicide and have to send it to the hospital to be admitted.
Yeah. Definitely a sensitive subject. When, we obviously have a lot of members in the community here that have mental illness, and I've had a couple of members myself before where, she had told us a story that her husband was basically killed right in front of her, and that image stays with her, for the rest of her life. And it's something that people don't like to talk about, right? But obviously, as a doctor or an MP or a psych counselor, you want to get to the root of the problem, right? And so most of the time, like how do you deal with patient that have mental disability like that? Is there specific ways to talk to them, or certain I guess procedures that can alleviate some of the stress or the PTSD, because obviously it's going to stay with them, but like, are there any like different or special approaches that doctors or NPs use to kind of help with that? Is there any tip that you can help us?
Yeah, for me, when I'm dealing with people who had a lot of side issue, although my focus is family, I did went for my psych MP to have like 14 credit left for my psych. What I found out that I give them some time, to reach out, to open the story instead of telling, instead of saying, oh, okay, what happened to your family? That kind of subjective, force them to do it. Normally, I will approach them very carefully. I say that, well, the idea of asking about the past is to find a way that we can reach out and to help you. Okay, and unless we understand what happened in your life, we cannot properly treat you. I had people who had claustrophobia, and I found out later on why. So eventually, she told me that because during the Khmer Rouge, they put the blind, on her, gag her mouth, and put her in the pit and buried her as a torture as a young child. And of course, she developed severe claustrophobia ever since. And I found out the reason why, because whenever she got into the room, I closed the door, she get nervous, sweating, all of that. And instead of asking for her, I just say that, well, if you feel comfortable someday, maybe you can tell me a little bit the reason why behind it. And let me understand the root of the problem. We cannot completely eradicate the problem. And eventually she learned to trust me enough. And then she started open slowly. And eventually she told me what happened.
Yeah, you mentioned the word trust. That's the key. With the people that we serve here, the first couple of visits, couple of months or so, they don't really like to, tell you a lot of things about themselves, about their conditions or anything like that. But when you get to know them, that's when, they give you their trust. That's when they start opening up and talk about like what happened. Because we do talk to members and caregivers about their past, and because it coincides with their current condition, like all this stuff affects their health in general. So the word trust is definitely a big key solution to trying to get people to talk about what happened, and perhaps help them after learning about, what had happened with them in the past. So that's great. So I think we're running out of time, but we have a couple of minutes. I just wanted to ask you about, do you have like a word of encouragement for younger generation to pursue like higher education or medicine and to become someone like you, and helping the communities and have the inspiration like you do?
Yeah. I think, my two things that come to mind is respect and trust. When I say respect is that, you're going to deal with some people that are different from us in how they do things. Culture is nothing wrong from their point of view. It might be different from us, but their culture is perfectly normal in their practice and daily life. So by respecting them, they will learn to respect you back. I have patients that I'm dealing with, with drug issue, opioid abuse and all of that. And I always treat them well because I don't know the whole history why they start using it. And eventually they open to me. But one thing I found out that by respecting them, also earn their respect as well. And and when you treat people that way, you're going to work well with a lot of people from different cultures. Trust is something you have to work hard to earn it. A lot of people have issue with trust, especially among Cambodians who were so victimized by many, many people in the past. So it takes a long time to earn their trust. Once you respect them, they start respecting you, and eventually you earn their trust, and that's how you will be able to treat them properly. And you will be able to understand why they do certain things that our thing is different. And that is the only way that you can help them out. Okay.
Great. Thank you so much for your time. Do you have a little bit of time to maybe take a couple of questions from the audience here? If anyone has any questions that you'd like to ask.
Yeah, feel free to type them into the chat and I'll read them out.
My student, he asked me to say a little. She said, "Oh, can I say a little bit about book?" I did.
Oh,
I did write a book. Actually, like I said again, I have Mr. Paul Marion here, the Law Historical Society director. He asked for my notebook that I wrote it. My diary. It's a keepsake in the museum, and I said not yet. I wrote a book, and I wrote this book. It's a big book, 704 pages in English. And I wrote that book while I started writing that book in 2004 while I worked full-time at Metta Health Center, and I went to school for my PhD, and also for my later on. I keep writing it. I wrote as a memoir for my kid. I have 2 kids. My daughter will be in medical school. She got she did well on an MCAT, and my son will be graduated from UNA. Again, he went to medical school. So I want to tell them about my life. So I started writing that book, and eventually some of my friend, Dr. Chika, read it and he said I should share. And that book, just not a book, it's a research. In addition to the story that I survived, I read additional 60 textbooks, Cambodian history, and I incorporate into that books. So it tells about what it happened that led to what. And, I included that, and it was a long book. I did a lot of researches. I finished my first manuscript in 2007, and it took me 10 years to do my researches. To be able to complete it. And after I completed, and I'm still some of my friends, Dr. Tony Shapiro, who helped to proofread it. And hopefully, it get out in probably this year, next year. But a very, very comprehensive book and a lot of Cambodian history in that. And I wrote the book all by myself, and I love writing as a part of my hobby.
I can't wait to read it. As soon as you have it available, I'll definitely want a copy of that. And
Quick question. I just want to tell you the title of my book. I think people want to know. Title of the book is A Silent Cry, and the subtitle is 18 Year Odyssey of an Innocent. So basically, I just talk about during the period of 18 years of an innocent,
yes,
who has to be born. But in that book, I did a lot of researches. Dr. Chikas, who read my book, I had Dr. Hinton at university in New York. The name of that university. He said that the book is 50% of Cambodian history and also 50% of autobiography, especially based on what I wrote in my diary. And I went to Cambodia multiple times, so my brother can take me around to show me where we went through it, so I can recall and remember what happened.
is it okay for me to share the synopsis that I got?
Yeah, that's the first draft. Yeah, take a look at it.
I will share that with Nonotuck.
I emailed the synopsis to them this morning.
Yeah.
Yep, I have a copy of that, so I'll be sharing that if it's okay with you.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, Rob, do we have any questions?
No questions in the chat. As of yet, we do have one comment from David expressing that that it's been a really inspiring story. Especially talking about some of the things we talked about earlier, especially coming from personal experience from it. We also have a thank you, of appreciation of accomplishments from Julie, expressing how much of an inspiration that you are. That is it for now.
Great. Okay. All right. I think we've taken enough of your time. Again, we really appreciate that you are being here. It's been an honor to be able to learn about your experience, and hopefully we'll be able to meet again. And
Yes. Thank you. And thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to talk about this. Yeah. Thank you.
thank you so much. Have a great day.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.